that school district. All sorts of things. We are putting parents first. And we're going to continue that this year. And I just want to, maybe I'll close with this one quote from Thomas Sowell, famous author and economist. He said, "The basic question is not what is best, but who says what is best." Thank you.
Our next speaker is State Rep. Silber. He's a practicing attorney. This gentleman here has actually submitted petitions to defund some of these organizations that have been undermining and usurping parental rights. And this is the type of thing that we all need to band together and do, because collectively there's millions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, that go to funding these organizations that don't have our interests in mind. So thank you for being here, sir.
Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Norm Silber. I am a state rep from Belknap County, District 2, which are the towns of Guilford and Meredith. I live in Guilford. Belknap County is now the most conservative county of our 10 counties in the state. We have 18 state representatives. We're covered by 3 senators, one of whom is here, and we have 1 executive counselor. All 18 plus 3 is 21, 22 people. I think I remember that. 22 people. They're all Republicans. Some better than others, but I'm waiting for Dr. Fauci to get back to me. I've asked for a blood test to be able to determine who's a real Republican and who's not, but he hasn't come back to me. So, my background is I, like many people, chose, when I was not lucky enough to be born in New Hampshire, I chose to move to New Hampshire. I'm a native of Florida. I was born and raised in Tampa. I'm a graduate of what used to be called the public schools. I and some of my compatriots, we now refer to them as government schools, because that's what they are, government schools. I got a good education, and these were the years before there was such a thing as teachers' unions. I went to college and law school in New Orleans at Tulane University. I worked my way through law school as a private detective carrying a gun. And I'm carrying a gun today because we passed constitutional carry. I'm in my second non-consecutive term. A couple of years ago, I was on a talk show, a local talk show out of the Guilford area, and the now deceased host, after some conversation, referred to me as a provocateur. And I wear that as a badge of courage, because I am. I think that the quote-unquote leadership of the General Court knows my views about most everything, and the quote-unquote leadership of the NHGOP knows my views about most everything. I am the chair of the Belknap County Republican Committee. We have a very active committee. Mostly, we took over the committee after a lot of careful study. The committee was pretty dead for many years. We took it over in January and ushered in a new era. And we've had a lot of very interesting speakers. One of the things that wasn't mentioned about Commissioner Edelblut was that he came this close to being our governor.
800 people.
This close. And hopefully, that might be a reality. He might reconsider and move on so that we can now refer to him as Your Excellency, which the state constitution requires. Let me mention to you one of the great people in our delegation from Belknap County who happens to be a retired Presbyterian minister. He is a state representative from Alton. His name is Paul Terry. He has pre-filed a bill that I helped him with because it's actually from a law passed in Florida that establishes a parental bill of rights in the state. And I'll just read, it's actually sort of long, but I want to read to you a couple of words from it. And it says that the state and any of its political subdivisions, et cetera, may not infringe on the fundamental rights of a parent to direct the upbringing, education, health care, and mental health of his or her minor children without demonstrating that such action is reasonable and necessary to achieve a compelling state interest and that such action is narrowly tailored, etc. And in parental rights, it says all parental rights are reserved to the parents of a minor child in the state without obstruction or interference from the state or any of its political subdivisions. So what I ask you to do when you go back home is to contact your own state representatives and state senators and tell them that when the parental rights bill comes before the House next year, that they vote for it and they support it, because that's very important. I'm a lawyer. I've been practicing for much too long. I'm a member of the bar in New Hampshire as well as in Florida. I've represented a lot of people in a lot of different matters, and I've done a lot of different transactions, and I've done litigation in state and federal court and appeals. I hate lawyers. We have too many lawyers. Law schools are great sources of money for colleges and universities that establish law schools, and what they do is they turn out lawyers, new lawyers, like sausages. And you know what they say, never look at a restaurant kitchen or where sausage is made. So you get lawyers that come out, some of whom have been taught critical legal theory, which was out of the Harvard Law School a few years back. Now we have critical race theory. So in any case, one of the things I was asked to talk about is, what can you do regarding educational freedom and your rights as a parent? Well, first thing is, Glenn and I and Frank Edelblut and several of us were all in attendance several weeks ago. There was Betsy DeVos and Mike Pompeo were in Concord talking about educational freedom. And there was a survey done by a statistical guy, and basically what you need to talk to your friends about is, we don't call it school choice. That doesn't sell. What sells is educational freedom. Educational freedom. Forget about school choice. Educational freedom. Now in my school district in Guilford, we have 3-year terms, staggered 3-year terms. I had a meeting at my house Friday night. We have, out of 5 members of our school board, we have 2 conservatives and 3 lefties, 2 of whose terms are coming up in the March elections. We had a meeting of a conspiratorial group with a couple of people who've indicated that they're willing to run, and they've pledged their principles that we can support. So we're now organizing in October for our March elections. Okay, you've got to do this. You've got to do this now. Okay, there are two ways to get change in the educational system. There's the quick way and the slow way. The slow way is through the general court, through the legislature. When I explain to somebody how a law gets passed, you wouldn't believe it. It's like a water torture. It's the death of 1,000 cuts. It goes through so many processes before it finally becomes a law. So you get a situation where before the session starts, you got 1,000 bills filed, and at the end, a couple of them will finally dribble out and get enacted into law. That's the slow way. The fast way to get change is by your elections. By your elections. Normally, other than school boards that have the staggered 3-year terms, and I guess some of our select boards too, most of our offices, from the governor to the state reps, state senators, have 2-year terms. I'm a big advocate of throw the bums out. If they're not doing what we want them to do, vote them out of office. We don't have a political class in New Hampshire like they have in Washington, or certainly we should not have. So vote the bums out. Now we've heard situations about, one of the things I've talked about and helped some people with is petition warrant articles. We have statutes that provide for citizens to draft petitions to put warrant articles on either the next regular election or alternatively in a manner that would require the calling of a special election. And I'm going to leave at the front table, you can get on your way out, basically the two statutes, one that deals with towns and one that deals with school districts, about how many you need. And basically it's about 20 for a regular election and it's about 50, depending on the size of your town, for a special election. So one of the things that people have talked about here is what happens, and I've heard from people just recently, we had enough signatures verified by the town clerk to require the calling of a special election. It's not discretionary. They must call it. And the governing body, whether it's the school board or the select board, says, yeah, we ain't gonna do it. So what do? Unfortunately, what you have to do is what's previously been discussed. You got to take these bastards to court. You got to take them to superior court. Whether you do it yourself or whether you hire a lawyer to do it. And believe it or not, there's actually a few lawyers in New Hampshire who will take these cases, who will do these cases on principle, on a matter of principle. Fortunately, I don't do litigation in New Hampshire at all, but because some of our civil rules are a little strange, sort of like our election laws, very strange. And but basically, that's your recourse. We inherited, we in our state, and 49 states of the United States, except for Louisiana, inherited our laws from England. So basically, one of the ancient rights under English law, and is now recognized in New Hampshire as well, is called a writ of mandamus. A writ of mandamus. M-A-N-D-A-M-U-S, mandamus. And what that writ said, that writ is an order of the court directed to a public official that says you must do your legal duty. That's what it is. So when you present a petition and they say, we're not going to hold a special election even though you complied with the law, you take them to superior court and ask for, you can call it a writ of mandamus, some people call it a mandatory injunction. I think the courts in New Hampshire said basically they're similar. It's the same, you're seeking the same relief. Basically an order of the court that tells these people to do your job, right? So now, can you do a petition warrant article on everything, on every subject? Not quite. There's some areas that you can't. Zoning things, land use things, or special statutes dealing with those types of warrants. Tax assessments by a town. There's a case that I believe Ken sent to me, which basically picked apart a petition warrant article that had a lot of stuff in it, and they said, okay, 2 of these you can do and 3 of these you can't. I think the lesson to be learned here is keep it simple. You know, the KISS system, keep it simple, stupid, keep it simple. You know, try to have one subject. I will tell you that I personally have drafted petition warrant articles to establish tax caps in towns. I've given them to a person who is now a state rep, he wasn't at the time, and miracle of miracles, it passed. So I have that template available. I will leave some of my cards on the table in the front with my email address on it, and if you want a template, whether it's to establish a tax cap, or if you want a template for any kind of warrant article, either for a regular election or a special election, I'll be happy to email it to you, and you'd sort of fill in the blanks type of thing. I also have a sample letter that you can take to your religious advisor, priest, minister, rabbi, or whatever, that you can they can fill in the blanks to support your application for a religious exemption to vaccines. I'll be happy to send that to you if you wish. Whether they will work or not, I saw somebody sent me today a bulletin, I think it was from Eversource, that basically laid out their whole procedure to evaluate applications for religious exemptions and how they're going to look into your psyche to figure out whether or not your religious exemption is validly based. That is just outrageous. That is just outrageous. So anyhow, I've got the basic New Hampshire laws on petition warrant articles, and Be happy to share it with you. 91A, I suggest that you go onto the web. You should print out a complete copy of 91A, RSA 91A, which is our right to know law, and study it. This is, look, if a law is written and it's so complex that you can't understand it, it's a really lousy law. This is written in plain English, and you need to, it's pretty simple. Now, I'll tell you, when I was the chairman of our local budget committee, we'd have our budget committee meetings, and we would, slash and burn all the, requests. And then after the meeting, a majority of us, because we were the conservative majority, we would go to Cactus Jack's in Laconia and have dinner. So was that a meeting? No, because all we talked about were guns. Who had what gun and which ones were better than others. So we didn't actually have a meeting to violate 91A. But you should be aware of 91A, and violations of 91A, there's exemptions, and I'm telling you, public officials, not Frank Edelblut, but there are many public officials in this state that will try to weasel out of giving you a meaningful response of 91A. We have a situation now in my county in which a government body, an instrumentality of our county government, is spending about $14 million a year, and I sent a simple 91A request to them, and they went out and hired a lawyer to do the response. This was how much did it cost? They wouldn't tell me how much it cost to get a lawyer to give me the 91A response. So, some of the stuff you simply cannot make up. But the only way to stop it is at the ballot box. Now, I did a special warrant article in my town to prohibit the school district from belonging to the state board of whatever they call the Association of the School Boards, the Association of the Superintendents. If you look on the budget, and you go to Budget Committee and you see the worksheets, you will see a line item for memberships, and there will be a whole alphabet soup of all these things, all these organizations, which are nothing more than taxpayer-funded lobbying groups. They're using our tax money to lobby the legislature and other agencies and other portions of government to do their bidding. And that, to me, is outrageous. That should not be. In the legislature, when there are public hearings, when the committees meet, we require the lobbyists to wear a big, not so big, an orange badge so you can see who's a lobbyist and who's not. But a lot of times that's not always honored in the breach. The lobbying reports are on the Secretary of State's website. You can look and see who's registered as a lobbyist, who they're lobbying for, and how much money they have been paid. And it will curl your hair to see some of this stuff. So the information is out there. You need to get active. You cannot let somebody else do it. That's the message that I have is you can't let somebody else do it. You need, and we're always short of good candidates for all the positions, whether it's a local board, whether it's a school board, whether it's a select board, a mayor's race, city council, whatever you call it, state rep, senators, etc. We need good candidates. The conservatives right now have a very, very slim majority in the House of Representatives in the state. We've had some deaths, we've had some resignations, things like that. We need good people. Hopefully, the 2022 November elections will be a wave election, and we'll be able to have a lot more people on our side, hopefully voting the right way. Just because, keep in mind, when a person walks in and signs a declaration of candidacy, all they have to do is pay their $2 and put down, I'm a member of XYZ party. Like I said, Dr. Fauci has not given me a blood test yet. So, a lot of times you'll see people that claim to be in one particular party, but they don't vote that way if they get elected. So you really need to vet your candidates. Go to ask them questions, call them up. I have a listed phone number, my email, I get a couple hundred emails a day. I answer my own phone. you know, they pay us a lot of money to be in the state legislature. Right? They pay us a lot of money, but it's state rep. Now, at least the state senators get offices, and they get an assistant or secretary. The state reps, we get lockers, no offices, and no assistants. So we're really on our own. And so I answer my own phone. I have a listed phone. I answer my own phone, and I'll listen to anybody as long as you're respectful. Sometimes they're not so respectful. But I also keep a folder in my Outlook for emails, and it's called cranks. So I think we all experience that. But I tell people who have gotten the gumption to get up and run and get elected to office, I said, how does it feel to be a punching bag? Because sometimes that's what it feels like. But you know what? I'm enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun. I think most of the reps that are here today particularly are having a good time because we're doing the people's work and we believe in what we're doing. So I'll be around afterwards for any questions, and I'll have some of these things for you. Thanks very much.
Okay, so I've got one more person who's going to come up and present. Senator Bob Guy is someone that I met back in 2010. And I knew from the very first minute that I spoke with this guy that was the real deal. He looked me in the eye and he gave me direct answers to every question. He didn't hem, he didn't haw. I'm not the kind of guy that beats around the bush. I ask people what they think and I hold them to it. Senator Guy is the reason why we had an audit on the voting machines in Wyndham. He was gracious enough to allow me to work with him on a daily basis, many, many hours to try to help get that pushed through. And it was not just because of his efforts, but it was because of the efforts of every citizen across the state. We flooded the State House with thousands of phone calls and thousands of emails. I had multiple very high-level state officials say to me, Ken, we just want it to go away. And that's what we have to do to take back control of our education system. You've heard today that there are things that we can do, and you've heard today that there are things that we can't do. And I'm telling you that there's nothing we can't do. We can move mountains if we work together. We're going through that. Our Constitution gives us that power and authority. We have not delegated to our school boards that they can tell us to go pound sand. We have not done that. These are our children. These are your children. You know what's best for them. And that's why we have to all work together, and we have to repeat what we did with SB 43, and we can do that. So I look at this from a constitutional issue, because we have the power, and if we keep that in the fronts of our minds, we're going to win this battle, and we're going to win it faster than they realize. Representative Silber is spot on the money. We need to defund these organizations that we're paying huge amounts of money. We have to defund them. And if our school boards and our school districts don't want to do that, we can submit petitions, and we can tell them, you shall not spend money, you shall not take our tax dollars and give it to the NHSBA. You shall not give it to the New Hampshire Superintendents and Administrators Association. Because these organizations, and we don't even have to give a reason, but the reason that we should do that is because they are lobbying against us every day. So, if Senator Guy would come up here, I'd like you to wrap this up and then we'll have our forum. This gentleman is a godsend to our state. He is one of the most passionate people that I've met. He quotes the Constitution all the time. He reminds me of Ron Paul, because in every time I speak with him, he refers to the Constitution. If you follow Ron Paul's attempts for presidency, and if you've ever spoken to the man, you realize that those are the types of people that we need in office, because they are true public servants. And this man is a very deep and dear friend of mine that with the deepest of respect, I thank God that I ever met him and that he serves for us. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ken. And first, everybody stand up. You've been sitting here listening. Take a stretch, get a little energized. I'm the cleanup hitter here. When you walk out of here today, you're going to have a list of things you should do. And if you have a pen and paper, even that much better. So take a stretch, give me a minute or two, and we'll get going. I'm going to pick up where Ken left off at the beginning of this. He quoted, "We hold these truths to be self-evident," right? The continuation of that clause in the U.S. Constitution says that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Okay? So, you have a duty, you have a right, but you have an obligation. I graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1975. I know I only look 25, but I've had a rough life. So, one of the principles they teach there is that with authority goes responsibility. And with both of those goes accountability. Our government today, at every level, is largely unaccountable. There are bills coming through, and I think Normie might be one of the sponsors, that are going to enable recalling public officials. There's no need to suffer through a 3-year term with a communist school board member. I'm on a school board. It's 2-to-1, 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 2-to-1. Someday it's going to be 2-to-1 the other way. Okay? Churchill said, never, never, never give up. Never, never, never give up. Why? Think of your grandchildren and their grandchildren. Think of the freedoms we have that are being robbed from us as we speak by a federal government that's out of control. Completely. Okay. So, I want to give you some tools that you can take home with you. The legislature is the tip of the spear, but as you know, the power doesn't come from the tip. The power comes from the shaft. You guys are that shaft. Okay? You're the driving force behind the tip. We can't do a doggone thing effectively unless you're in the game with us. Read a little quote here. I'm going to ask you who made it. "And thus neither the demonstrations of past courage nor the need for future courage are confined to the Senate alone. They concern everyone who has ever complained about corruption in high places, and everyone who has ever insisted that his representative abide by his wishes. For in a democracy, every citizen, regardless of his interest in politics, quote, holds office, end quote. Every one of us is in a position of responsibility, and in the final analysis, the kind of government we get depends upon how we fulfill those responsibilities. We, the people, are the boss, and we will get the kind of political leadership, be it good or bad, that we demand and deserve." Who said that? Who wrote that? Today he would be considered a conservative Republican. His name was John Fitzgerald Kennedy, President of the United States. Okay. You own this thing. We are the tip of the spear, but you are the power of the spear. We need you. Okay? Citizenship is not a spectator sport. You have to get involved, and we say, as Tip O'Neill used to say, all politics is local. The most powerful body in the world, Ross Perot, 1992, I voted for him twice, okay, is the local school board. The most powerful body politically in the world is your local school board. They shape the minds and the thinking, or lack thereof, of your children and mine. Like Commissioner Edelblut, my wife and I homeschooled our kids. She did most of it. Okay. While I was away traveling the world for United Airlines, 31 years. I had the privilege of watching other political systems. I would go to church in Beijing, China, in a small Catholic church that was amidst the commercial section with towering skyscrapers around it. You walk into that church, and in the apse of the church were the cameras and the recorders of the Communist Party government. Very real. I get goosebumps talking about it. So, we are in a time in our country right now where we're experiencing a collision between government authority, claimed, and the individual rights and freedoms of every citizen in this country. Vaccine mandates, mask mandates, all of these things that are offensive to our freedom. They are offensive to the Constitution. We're the tip of the spear. I can tell you there's legislation coming. You need to talk to your legislators. You need to call them, you need to tell them what you think. And you need to do it in writing as well. Okay? Every means of communication is critical. What can you do to change what's going on? All right, so first, you have tools before you. Every school district should have a curriculum committee. You need to ask your principal and your school board, when is it meeting, where is it meeting, and I want to be there. In my district, the last time they met was in 2012. Because the curriculum is developed on an ad hoc basis by guess who? The very teachers that are spewing critical race theory, etc., etc., etc. It's your school board, it's your school, it's your child. When is the curriculum committee meeting? Who's going to be there? And I want to join that meeting. Okay? You have to be there. That's where you're going to start unraveling what's going on in our schools. Second thing, school boards can accept resolutions. So if you as a parent or a group of parents want an idea discussed or an issue aired, present a resolution to the school board at your local school board meeting. If they refuse it, that's one X in the box, okay, towards the next election. So resolutions. Petitioned warrant articles. Norm talked about those. Okay? They're there for us. They're there for, I've used them. Okay? And they're very effective. You get 25 people to sign a document and go before the school board and put it before them. They have to put it in the warrant. Okay? That means the thought that you think, the idea that you have, the thing that you want stopped or started is now a matter of law. It's being viewed by the people in the legal forum, right in town, the annual school district meeting, and it will be decided. You may not win, but as Churchill said, never, never, never give up. A lot of things don't pass on the first time. Might take 2 or 3. Don't quit. Your kids are worth it. The recall provision that I believe is coming from the House. It's up to you. Call, write, and email your elected reps when that legislation comes forward. And tell them, I want my right to recall a recalcitrant or errant public servant. Okay? And if you don't, I will recall you at the next election cycle. You be respectful, but be very clear. Be very clear. Okay? You need to build, this is an important one, because we're in a very contentious time right now. Because the clash of values that's going on is cataclysmic. We need to win the hearts and minds of a majority of the people in our communities. And majority of our boards, whatever they be, select board, alderman, school board, powers of persuasion. We have to be able to articulate respectfully but clearly, okay, non-threatening but very clear. And I'll tell you, the very best thing you can do is start with this little goodie here, called the Hampshire Constitution. I carry it everywhere I go. Everywhere I go. Everything you need to do as a citizen, every authority you have, everything the government's allowed to do, things it's told not to do, are in that book. I tell people, and without batting an eye, there are 5 documents you need to have on your living room table, and you need to read them every week. 1, the Bible, or the Torah. Okay, I won't say the Quran because I don't agree with it. The Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, George Washington's inaugural address, and George Washington's farewell address. That's it. Those 5 documents will give you everything you need to understand your role as a citizen and the fears and the thoughts of America's first president who served at the service of those geniuses that took 12 years to put together the Constitution of the United States. Okay? If you don't know those, if you don't have those, if you don't teach those yourself to your children, you're a failed parent. You're failing as a parent, you're failing as a citizen. Please, 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 for the sake of your kids, for the future generations of this country, those 5 documents should be in your home and actively read. Education freedom accounts. This is the dagger through the heart. The dagger through the heart of the government school establishment monopoly. They hate it, they're fighting it, they'll sue against it, they'll do everything they can. You as a parent can tell your children where you're going to school. You can tell the school district where they're going. It doesn't touch your local tax base, it just takes the state funds, adequacy money, and it follows your children. That means you have to take an active role with your kids. And you guys, I'm sure most of you are in the game. Stay in the game. Those EFAs, use them, don't just have them. You know, I served as an FBI agent for a while, and I know a little bit about firearms. I was a Marine officer. infantry trained as a pilot as well. If you have a Second Amendment right and you don't exercise it, it's useless. When you're walking down the street and a mugger grabs your purse, it's useless. You're walking down the street and somebody's getting stabbed, robbed, or whatever. You have the amendment, but it's of no use. Education freedom accounts. We put them there for you. They're to free your children from the corruption and the absolute tyranny that's going on in our schools. You can homeschool. You can go to a charter school. You can go to a religious school. Okay? And the options that Frank laid out, they're yours to choose, they're yours to do, they're also yours to lose. Okay? So your legislators need to hear from you how strongly you support your freedom of choice in education, those education freedom accounts. Tell them. Don't assume they know. We don't. We're the tip of the spear. You're the power of the spear. We have three sets of laws that I believe we live under. God's laws, nature's laws, and man's laws. And when man's laws start violating either of the other two, bad things happen. Look around you. 46% of the children born in this state are born to single mothers. 90% of those cases, that's relegation to a life of poverty, destitution, and ignorance. Because being a mom in a full family is a full-time job. Being a single mother is the most difficult task in the world. And giving the crushing responsibilities of just being an adult in today's world, earning a living, trying to survive, they don't stand a chance. 46% of our kids are starting out, 10 feet behind the start line before they ever get there. 74% of our high school kids, 74%, are not proficient in math in the 11th grade. I talked to our superintendent. You know what the comment was? Well, the SAT is a really tough test. I said, so you're telling me dumb it down. Let's lower the test so that we make our kids look better. Competing in a world